as well. Top speed, 220 miles an hour in the dry. No mandatory pit stops. We'll see if we get any in the sprint. It will all be weather affected. 19 corners, 12 to the left and 7 to the right. An expectant crowd waiting then for the action. To 19 corners, 12 to the left and 7 to the right. An expectant crowd get going. Waiting then, hopefully to the shelter. 19 corners, 12 to the left an hour ago, because the heavens open here. The track absolutely saturated, and as a result, we should only have 18 cars on the grid for this race. I'll explain more in a moment. Yuki Tsunoda already starting in the pit lane. They've changed the suspension on his Red Bull. Ollie Behrman, slowest qualifier for the second time this season. Gabriel Bortoletto will line up alongside Jack Doohan out in SQ1 at both sprints so far this year. Lance Stroll and Carlos Sainz, 16th and 15th are on the grid. Sainz, heavy lockup on his final lap in SQ2, and that took him out. So Liam Lawson starts 6 places higher than he did in the Shanghai sprint. He's alongside Pierre Gasly. Esteban Ocon 12th for Haas. They started 12th with Ollie Behrman in Shanghai. Nico Hülkenberg, high start for a Sauber this year. And 11th, Fernando Alonso into the top 10 in qualifying for the first time this year. Isaac Hadjar alongside him for the team that finished 4th in the sprint last year in Miami. Alex Albon starts 8th alongside Lewis Hamilton for Ferrari in 7th, and Hamilton the only Ferrari driver taking part because Charles Leclerc crashed on his way to the grid. Heavy damage on his car. George Russell starts 5th, Max Verstappen will start 4th. He won a Grand Prix here from 9th once upon a time. Lando Norris 3rd on the grid, and then the youngest front row of all time, average age 21 years, 143 days. It's Oscar Piastri, and for the first time ever in Formula One, Kimi Antonelli on pole. And if his job wasn't tough enough beforehand, the rain has made it even tougher, Martin Brundle.
Very tough, because they're only allowed 1 lap to the grid for the sprint race. It was saturated out there. We saw Charles Leclerc crash on the intermediate tyres, but I think it's now an intermediate tyre race track. They've had blowers out there and sweepers, so the track's somewhat different to when they went to the grid anyway. And the wet tyres, as we see the intermediates there on Oscar Piastri, the wet tyres are very much a stepping stone, transient kind of tyre. You don't want to go a long way on them. As long as you're not aquaplaning, which is exactly what happened to Leclerc, you need a little bit more rubber on the track that the intermediates give you. So it's a no-brainer to start on those, and the formation lap will be behind the safety car to give the drivers another look at the somewhat different racetrack, and then hopefully they'll release the cars for a standing start.
Yeah, keep our fingers crossed for that. Intermediate tyres, as you were saying, Martin, might be worth a gamble from those outside the top 8, because it's points down to 8th place here, and Carlos Sainz has done that with the Williams, starting on the wet tyres, just in case it is a bit too slippy for the intermediates. It's a bit too wet for the intermediates. They've taken a gamble to go on to the wets. Ted Kravitz, down to you.
So what exactly is going to happen, we wait and see, but Williams think the rain is going to get worse, and I've got to say, the radar croft agrees with them, but not for another 10 or so minutes. So Carlos Sainz starting on full wet tyres, the only driver on the grid to start on full wet tyres.
Safety car is bad enough. Think about those that are trying to follow the Mercedes on pole.
Yeah, and the spray looks much worse from inside the cockpit. You're looking through 100 metres of spray, whereas a camera or a higher line looks down through 10 or 15 metres of spray, for example. So it is significantly worse, as you'll know if you're going down the motorway, the freeway on a very wet day, trying to pass a truck, just how unsighted you can be.
Michael Johnson talking to us on Sky F1 before we crossed over the commentary, says, Kimi Antonelli, meet the moment today. This is your moment, meet it headlong. And from what we've seen, Martin, he looks cool, he looks calm, he looks focused, he doesn't look stressed about this.
Visibility even in P2 is terrible. And a big river in turn 10. Copy, Oscar, understood.
That's a message for the race director, of course. So, but Oscar there, I mean, that's very factual. I don't think there's any drama or cunning plan there. That's a factual situation, and the race director will be wanting to get information information from the drivers, and they're certainly not pulling up on the grid, are they?
No,
at this speed.
We're carrying on behind the safety car here. So more laps behind the safety car. It's Max Verstappen looking a little bit steady and sedate, trying to get out of turn 18.
He was struggling for grip, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. We can see now, so this is into the corner, turn 17 at the end of the straight. And yeah.
He's locked his brakes.
That's why. And obviously those brakes behind the safety car will be cooling down, his tyres cooling down. That won't make it easy either.
Yeah, he did well not take the front wing off against the barrier there, Verstappen. And presumably he will make his way back up into the position he was in. He's allowed to do that because he didn't fall right to the back. Oh, there's Verstappen now. He's not fully back in his position, is he? But because he didn't fall right
Can't
to the
see
back.
anything behind the safety car. Okay. Copy.
Let's go to Zach Brown on the pit wall. McLaren, the McLaren CEO. Looks really treacherous out there, Zach. We heard Oscar saying that there's a big river of water at turn 10 as well. Are you expecting a few laps behind a safety car here?
Yeah, it looks like we need it. There's some rivers, visibility for all of them seem poor, and I think a couple laps will certainly help. Whether it'll help enough, let's see. We need to make sure we get in a good race, but also we have a qualifying session.
So we heard that message from Oscar Piastri. Presumably the race director's all over that. Are you sending information to race control as well from the McLaren and other pit walls?
Yeah, we are. Obviously, the drivers have the best sense of what's raceable and not. So I think all the drivers, I just saw Kimi spoke up, and he and Oscar can't see, and they're at the front. So
Yeah,
I can't
this
imagine
visibility
a
is
little further back.
Genuinely the worst I've ever had in a race car. Copy that.
And as a result of Oscar Piastri's feedback, and I'm sure the feedback of the other drivers as well, the starting procedure has been suspended. We have a red flag. So we were on lap 1 of 19. Behind the safety car, we had a formation lap. The next lap counts as one of the race laps. But the conditions are so treacherous out there. The red flag has been thrown. So the drivers will come back into the pit lane. They'll line up in order, and we'll wait. I see Martin Brundle for such a time that the track will dry out, or race control decide we're not going to get the sprint race gone.
Yeah, I believe they'll need to pull up in the fast lane in order. Verstappen, as I said, is allowed and has done, got back to his position because he did not fall right to the back of the pack. And before they get to the pit entrance, the first safety car line, you've got to be back in position, and that's exactly what he did.
I have a problem with my visor. I think all the water is going in between that they're off.
So, heaven only knows what Lance Stroll can see through that if he's got water forming up between the tear-offs. Ted Kravitz down in the pit lane.
A very busy pit lane, Crofty, and I'm not quite sure of the wisdom of asking all 19 Formula One cars to come into the space where there are all the mechanics standing around, because the mechanics thought they were going to go to the grid. They now know they're not going to go to the grid. They're going to go to the fast lane of the pit lane, as if it was a red flag once a race had started. But Crofty, the thing is, for me, the race hadn't started.
Well,
had it? Well, it was still the formation lap.
No, Ted, the race had started. What happens is you have a formation lap behind the safety car. When they cross the line, that is then lap 1 of the race, so the team should have known that.
Yeah, we're 1 lap into this race, and so this is a red flag situation. It's not an aborted start situation where they go back to the grid, and that's why they pull up in the fast lane, and anything that gets taken out with the fast lane to be worked on will then be applied to start from the pit lane. So you're in race conditions here.
Can we change the headrest again? I'm way too far back.
Ted, pick up.
So Oscar, did you hear the radio message where he said this is genuinely the worst, and that has been echoed on the team radio by a lot of other drivers, the worst visibility that they have had, even considering other wet races, Brazil, even Australia earlier this season. So yeah, that was just it. It wasn't that they were flying off all over the place, just that they couldn't see.
And extraordinarily, Ted, these are drivers who are right at the sharp end, even Antonelli, just following the safety car. But the big fat tyres you have on a Formula One car, even the intermediates are lifting tens of litres of water into the sky at high speed, away from the racetracks where the tracks dry out pretty quickly. But so those right at the front were saying, I can't see where I'm going. Can you imagine that multiplied by 15, 16 times at the back?
Normally, Martin, about this time, I'd tell people if they want to ride on board, they can do so. They need their Sky Sports app, Sky Sports login, or use the interactive button on your remote control if you're on Sky Q, Sky Stream, Sky Glass, or Now. But you don't even need to press your remote controls for this moment, because we'll tell you and show you what it was like on board with Lewis Hamilton. We can actually show you the footage behind the safety car. So down the back straight, this is the visor cam with Lewis. So you can see what the drivers are driving through out there. And you can see, Martin, why he's had to move to the left-hand side to keep out of the big rooster tails of George Russell's Mercedes in front of him.
Yeah, I mean, the cars are fast now, and Lewis grabbing an armful of opposite lock there to correct a big slide. 80s and 90s, we wouldn't even thought twice about racing in this, but it was a bit crazy. And we had some big crashes. I had one myself in Suzuka as well, where I sadly broke a marshal's leg very badly when I went flying off the track, aquaplaning in a great big puddle. But we did used to start a race in these conditions, but in this day and age, we don't. But these things are violently fast as well. And to say, big fat tyres on the back.
I think that the word you use there that's crucial is aquaplaning. And if there's any chance of aquaplaning out there, they're obliged to throw the red flag.
Because the cars can't get out of the way, they're just going to go up against the wall. You saw Charles Leclerc. I don't think aquaplaning is the issue, frankly. It's just the visibility.
Rivers of water at turn 10, said Oscar Piastri. But Anthony Davidson, you were watching on board. Were there any other parts of the track that looked particularly treacherous?
No, not really, Crofty. It's pretty much the same across the board the whole way through the lap. But just joining on the tyre chat there, so the reason why we can't race in these conditions, obviously now today the cars are producing more downforce than ever before. That means that the tyres have to be harder in construction as well than ever before to resist the squash that they get under the 5 tons of downforce at 300 kilometres an hour down the straights. So at full racing speed, you stand a better chance. The problem is at the moment is the lack of visibility. And again, because the cars are so massive and the ground effects kicking up all the spray and those massive tyres kicking up all the spray, you can't see. Also on top of that, it's a very tight surface here. The micro macro that we talk about, very close-knit surface. So the water's just sitting on the top and it just becomes a river that they're driving along. So that's why they can't see.
Thanks ever so much, Ant. Interestingly, the 1 hour clock that starts to tick down hasn't started ticking down. So the sprint race is 19 laps or 1 hour, whichever is the shorter on that one, and that hasn't started ticking down, which, as we were on lap 1, one would have thought it should have done.
Yeah, there's an hour and a half window to get this done, so it doesn't trip over qualifying another event on. So I'm going to assume until we're half an hour into it, that 1 hour won't start, as we had in Spa, didn't we? Do you remember that crazy where we had a non-race race in Spa?
Yes, the 2 laps and half points, which won't happen again because it's necessitated a change in the points and how they were awarded, given how many laps that you've done in Formula One. So that's the weather radar. And we're right in the centre of the circle, the cross. So there's a bit of blue. It looks a lot better than it did half an hour ago, maybe even 20 minutes ago. The really heavy stuff has passed over the track now.
Those 2 red spots on their way towards us, though, look a little bit ominous, don't they? But it's tomorrow when rain late afternoon, mid to late afternoon was forecast, not today, isn't it?
That's right.
This has really come out of the blue.
Florida rain. And it's giving us a bit of a wait. You can see the grid. There's a bit of a puddle there on the right-hand side where it looks an awful lot wetter. The grid might just be at a little bit of a camber, slight angle. Hard Rock Stadium to the right, and all the corporate hospitality. The expensive tickets have been snapped up for this race and for Lewis Hamilton. Even though we've got a rain delay, you still need to keep cool because it is still very, very warm and very humid as well.
Yeah, 78% humidity out there. And it's pretty tight inside the cockpit, and you share the cockpit with all sorts of devices.
If you weren't with us for the laps to the grid, that's how far Charles Leclerc got. Aquaplaning into the wall, no chance of avoiding that.
Yeah, you're just a passenger because basically the tyre gets up on top of the surface and has no grip whatsoever. And bits flying off left, right and centre. The rear wing's broken. That's a car that it'll be done for qualifying later on this afternoon, but was never ever going to make it onto this grid.
What he did do, Charles Leclerc, was to continue onwards, and he got quite a long way around the track from the scene of the accident. And Ferrari and Charles Leclerc are going to have to go to the stewards once we're done with the sprint to explain why he did that. You're obliged now, when you have an accident like that, to stop pretty immediately.
And they've doubled down on that as well. And you really are obliged to get off the racetrack at the earliest opportunity and stop, and not basically coast around at 10 miles an hour, dropping bits of carbon fibre randomly.
And I can understand why he did it, Martin. He wanted to try and get back to the pits to see if there was any chance that he could take the grid, but you aren't allowed to do it. So we'll see if that's a team fine or an individual sporting penalty to come for Charles Leclerc after the sprint race and after he's been to see the stewards. Ted, back down to you.
Tell you what, Crofty, it's quite a scene down here of different drivers doing different things. Oscar Piastri found himself an easy chair there, didn't he? Just wanted to see what's going on. George Russell hard at work with the engineers. I think you can see him on the main feed now in the Mercedes garage. He's got the cool ice packs on, but hasn't got that fetching silver inflatable cool jacket, Crofty. So I don't know whether that's been lost in the luggage since Bahrain or Saudi. Don't know what's happened to that. Nico Hülkenberg has just availed himself of the facilities in the Mercedes garage. So bold as brass, Hülkenberg, the Sauber driver, walked into Mercedes, used the loo, and then came back out again. So he's obviously feeling like he's got friends in this team. Carlos Sainz just passed me, having a word with James Vowles to see whether he's going to decide to take those full wet tyres off and put the Inters on, which I think will be an easy choice because the sun, Crofty, it is coming out. Can you see out your commentary box window? I know what Martin's saying. Down towards the south, the radar says there are still showers around the area, sort of Key Biscayne, Homestead, Del Boca Vista, those areas south of Miami. There is still rain around there, but yeah, the sun is out in the pit lane at the moment.
Ted, might need you to do some investigating and some digging for me in the pit lane, because we're led to believe we've had a lap of this race, but it might be that the FIA, those that are in charge of this race, are saying that it was an extra formation lap and doesn't count as one of the race laps.
I mean, not that I want to bring it up again, Crofty, but I said the race hadn't started, and you shut me down and said that it had.
Yeah, because according to our screen up here, it had started.
Right.
It says it's lap 1 and there's 18 to go at the moment on the official screen up here.
Yeah. Can both be true, Martin? That the race hadn't started, but they had dropped it down to
You can't just lob in extra formation laps. The cars are fueled very precisely for a formation lap and a sprint race. You can't just randomly lob extra formation laps at Formula 1 teams. So that's why I believe the screen that's up here.
Haven't we had that before when we had all of those formation laps in Brazil a couple of years ago?
Well,
and the race hadn't started then. Crofty, I will accept your challenge.
Please do.
As to whether I was right all along, or whether you were right all along, or whether both of us were actually correct. And whether the race has started or not started, but they've already taken a lap off it.
Oh, dear. Don't you just love it when a plan comes together on this? There's Marco Antonelli, Kimi Antonelli's father, who has probably done a lot of pacing up and down overnight, and is probably still pacing up and down now, and at least with a smile on his face, because his son, starting on pole, has still not really officially got going, but he will get going in less than 10 minutes. The sprint will start at 12:25 local time. So we have a start time, Martin, at least.
Yeah, if it was an extra formation lap and they've suspended the start, they should have gone back to the start line.
Yeah.
Not, the red flag procedure is go back to the fast lane of the pit lane, which is where they all went immediately back to.
Thank you very much. All a little bit confusing here. What we do want is to see some action. And if you're just tuning in, there's race control, making sure that everything is in place. The track has been swept in the last 10 minutes or so, and that was when the rain was at its heaviest. Charles Leclerc hitting the wall quite hard. He won't take part in this race. Ferrari sent him out on intermediate tyres, which was probably the right tyre when he entered the track, but when he got down to turn 8, Martin, the rain was an awful lot heavier, and there was no chance he was going to escape the wall.
Yeah, so sprint will start at 28 minutes past the hour here. There's a correction just popped up. I'm not sure it's fair to say Ferrari sent him out. I'm sure the drivers are party to that kind of decision. They're not just dumb sitting in the car going, I'll drive whatever you give me. You know, it is, I would have thought it's a collegiate effort, that one, as to which tyre you're going to go to the grid on. But if the drivers say it looks like full wets to me, Ferrari not, or any team's not going to just throw them out on inters.
All the crowd getting the best vantage point they possibly can on the stairwells of the Hard Rock Stadium, refurbished at a cost of $350 million. And it looks absolutely magnificent inside that stadium, where all the team's hospitality units are all stationed. Hosted, 2 World Series baseballs, 6 Super Bowls as well. I remember in 2007 being inside that stadium for the Super Bowl, and Prince playing the halftime show and singing Purple Rain in the Rain. Maybe someone could put Purple Rain on for George Russell and Kimi Antonelli, with a shade of purple on their race suits for this weekend.
So we're definitely showing 18 laps to go, which sorts out their fuel issue at the moment, up on this screen here anyway. So presumably they'll follow the safety car out again, and we wait with bated breath to see whether the safety car pits and lets them go to the grid, or adds extra formation laps.
And confirmation from the FIA that the race did not start. It was an extra formation lap that was thrown into proceedings. But what it has done is cut down the amount of laps that we will get for the race, because cars had run out of fuel if we now had a 19-lap race. And that, Ted, is hot off the presses from Cameron at the FIA.
Aha, okay, I've had it double confirmed by no less authority than Andy Stevenson at Aston Martin, the sporting director. So will you believe him, Crofty? I know you didn't believe me.
I didn't believe you.
That's fine. No. I'm used to that. I've got no problem. And you know, Crofty, I'm also not the kind of person to say I told you so I won't say that.
But you told me so.
No, I didn't. So the starting the race never started. The starting procedure was suspended. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the start. It's baking down here now, my friend. It's drying out, and the sun is out, and no sign of the rain that was to the south of the city. So, well, let's start it again. I guess everybody will have to be out on intermediates, including Carlos Sainz. And you never know, Crofty, in 5 laps' time, we might be calling for some slicks.
Well, that would be a thing, wouldn't it? Williams will have the chance to get rid of the wet tyres on Carlos Sainz's car.
Yep. That gamble has window of opportunity has somewhat been taken away, hasn't it? But they'll still be struggling with visibility, even in window of opportunity has somewhat been taken away, hasn't it? But the sun is they'll still be struggling with visibility to get out there now. Window of opportunity has somewhat been taken away, hasn't it? But the sun is they'll still be struggling with visibility to get out there now. And yeah, let's see how many formation laps they're going to throw at it this time.
I reckon 2 laps behind the safety car, and then a potential standing start is what race control are aiming for this.
And what do you base that on?
Cameron from the FIA has just sent me another message. Yeah, while you were talking, that's what I was messaging, saying, right, come on, how many laps behind the safety car then?
I wonder why this information's not generally available to all the race fans around the world and everybody watching.
Zach Brown watching on. I don't know what your weather radar's saying, but it looks a lot brighter somewhere over Bill's Mothers.
Yeah, it looks like there could be some more rain coming briefly. and then it should stop. So I think this is going to be a tricky race. You got to have one eye on a good result in the sprint, but you don't want to compromise your car for qualifying.
And what's the gap, Zach, between the sprint race and qualifying? You have to have a mandatory time, don't you, to in order to take cars out of parc fermé and do what you need to do?
Yeah, but if you have a severe damage to your car, then you won't make qualifying. And obviously, you know, I didn't see Charles' car close up, but I suspect they'll be running to get that car ready, and that obviously happened a half an hour ago. So if something happens here in the next 45 minutes, it could be a challenge being ready for qualifying.
Is that your biggest worry this afternoon, then, that qualifying for the main event might be compromised by this sprint race?
Yeah, I think so. You know, more points at play tomorrow, and if you have an issue and you can't make qualifying, then it makes tomorrow pretty difficult. But we'd like to try and get on the podium on both, so we'll race hard.
Presumably you can see the Ferrari garage. Leclerc's car must still be stranded out on track. They can't start working on it yet, can they?
Yeah, no, I do not see it. So yeah, they'll have it retrieved here pretty quickly, I presume.
Thanks ever so much indeed, Zach. We'll be back with you in a little while. Valtteri Bottas as reserve driver at Mercedes, heading back to the garage, and doesn't that look a lot better? The medical car making its way around the track. That looks a lot drier, Martin.
It does look considerably drier. It looks as slippery as oiled oak, though, doesn't it? There's been some racing and some running here. It's a temporary facility, of course, sort of folded in around the car park of this magnificent stadium. And I have to say, I think they've done a super job to make a really credible high-speed racetrack in a very confined space. But my goodness, it looks slippery. 75 different circuit designs they came up with. They simulated 36 of those different designs. Don't worry, it hasn't started raining again. That car is just a show car. It's not actually on the track. And then the final design was chosen from those 36 simulated designs. And I'm with you, Martin. They've come up with a really good track here, and we're going to be racing here for quite some time to come. Not just today with this delay, but until 2041.
Okay, so we have been informed that when we leave the pit lane, the race will start. So we will be taking the grid start.
Okie dokie, that sounds somewhat different, doesn't it, to the other information? Good. So they'll go to the grid from here.
Yeah.
And start. So there's another lap that'll come off the screen, then getting round to the start and go to the grid and start a race.
So Yuki Tsunoda, even though he starts this race from the pit lane, I suppose because the cars have been on the track and now out apart from that's a bit tenuous, because if it was one formation lap.
So there's no more rain expected currently.
I finish on slicks.
as we were saying, if there was just one formation lap, Yuki Tsunoda would have trundled out of his garage, get to the end of the pit lane, and then start the race. But
no, because the race hasn't started yet. So I think he can leave the pit lane, do a formation lap. He must then go in back to the pit lane and start at the end of the pit lane.
And
yeah, so I've just been listening to Yuki's radio with his engineer, and they're talking about very much joining this pack when they leave the pit lane, coming round, and they're still in question whether it's going to be a grid start or a rolling start.
Interesting, because there is, from race control, no indication yet that it will be a standing start. We're hoping it's a standing start. It looks dry enough to be a standing start.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? Yeah. You would think so. The water's clear. It's really difficult for the teams and drivers because there are vehicles out there blowing the track and sweeping the track. You kind of don't know what you're going to find when you get out the back of the circuit.
News coming in all the time. The current plan is to have 2 laps behind the safety car in order to give the drivers a chance to go through turn 1 and then make a decision on a standing versus rolling start. So I'm assuming that's not the drivers making that decision, but their feedback will be taken into consideration by Rui Marquez, the race director.
I think I'm going to sit back and wait and see what they do, because it seems somewhat unclear, doesn't it? There's no point in trying to second guess it at the moment, and I'm sure it will be affected by the feedback they're getting from the drivers as well.
So either way, we're going to get going again in less than a minute's time now. Lots of cloud around. We keep our fingers crossed that we don't get any rain. Toto Wolff, who made the decision when Lewis Hamilton left Mercedes to bring in this man, Kimi Antonelli, into the stable. Plenty of drivers would have been available for Toto Wolff, but he chose the youngster, the young Italian. And in what is his 6th Grand Prix weekend, he has come up with his first pole position in any format of Formula One, the first Italian to take any pole since Giancarlo Fisichella in Spa in 2009.
Impressive. He wasn't fastest in any sector in sprint qualifying. It was just a really good, tidy, fast lap from the youngster starting on pole, and that's what made it was a few thousandths. That's what made the difference.
Yeah.
He just hooked up 3 very solid sectors rather than sparkling in any of them in particular.
Here we go then for the first of what should be a couple of formation laps, and we'll be listening to the team radios, which you can do obviously back at home as well via the Sky Sports app or via your interactive remote control. If you're watching on Now or Sky Q, Sky Glass or Sky Stream, and there will be lots of chatter, I'm sure, on the radio. Anthony Davis is trying to keep across 4 drivers at the moment, and as to what they're saying, but already, Ant, is feedback coming in?
Yeah, they're just talking about most teams saying 2 laps they're expecting behind the safety car, but it's a very organic thing at the moment, Crofty, isn't it?
There's a lot less spray now when you see the cars like the Red Bull in the bottom of your screen there. When it's got a bit of speed on, there's way less spray. This is very raceable now, this track.
The freeway has almost come to a standstill on the right-hand side. Plenty of traffic in the area, and plenty of people still making their way to the circuit. All the computers and computing power at his disposal, but Andrea Stella wants to stand in the open air just to get a feel of the conditions, the McLaren team principle. And yeah, the spray is reduced, obviously still hanging around in pockets, and I'm sure it'll hang in the air a bit given the humidity.
This is like Melbourne, where there was a delayed start and changeable conditions. It's really hard to keep your head at this time. You're hyped up, you're ready to go racing, and you just have to just stay calm somehow with the uncertainty that's going on. It's really a peak time for a Formula One driver to get into some kind of zen and not let this get in your head.
I'm not saying it's easy for Kimi Antonelli, but if you're one of the 6 rookies, maybe pole is the best place to be.
How conditions?
Reasonable now, yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Given that he hasn't got the spray when we do get going, coming from a car in front of him.
Yeah, it is raceable, as we were saying. And, you know, Max wants to get going, so do Red Bull, because as we go into another formation lap then, we'll keep an eye on the safety car light to see if that's coming in this lap, so they can go and do a standing start. Presumably we wait for that information as well, a standing or rolling start, but I would imagine Max and Red Bull think there's some scalps to be had here in these conditions, with Max's undoubted talent, well, everywhere, but in the rain.
Yeah, standing water's gone quite a lot. Still a couple of rivers. Visibility is okay. End of the straights is still pretty bad.
Very detailed analysis there from Oscar Piastri. You'll notice lap 2 of 18, so these formation laps are counting for the total race laps because of the fuel issue and not wanting cars to run out of fuel, and we're told it is a standing start. So with Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri giving some feedback, and other drivers too, standing start has been chosen.
Yeah, I can understand, you know, Max down there in 4th is keener to get this underway than perhaps Oscar Piastri, the World Championship leader, up there in 2nd, as it were. But it does look entirely raceable now, is the right word. And now they'll need some heat in those intermediate tyres. It's a compound that generates grip in cooler conditions, because you're obviously running through water a lot of the time. Completely different. Sometimes it can be a harder compound even than the slick tyres. It's a different type of compound on the tyre to generate grip in cooler conditions, and they soon overheat as well, which comes back to Ocon's comment of it'll finish on the slicks if we're not careful.
Get the feeling he might be right, you know. Give it 7 or 8 laps of this with no more rain. We might yet get some pit stops.
Yeah, now it's about who's been able to practice any wet starts. And which gear will they start in? Will they start in second gear?
That's normally the way, isn't it?
Yeah, and so, you know, who's really on top of their wet starts?
There's your pole sitter then. Kimi Antonelli for this sprint. Alongside him on the front row of the grid, the championship leader, Oscar Piastri. Behind Oscar Piastri, keen to get to the grid, Lando Norris. Max Verstappen starts alongside Lando Norris on that second row. Third row, George Russell. Was Charles Leclerc? No. Charles Leclerc out of this race after crashing on his initial lap to the grid when the rain was at its heaviest about an hour ago. Lewis Hamilton ahead of Alex Albon, Isaac Hadjar ahead of Fernando Alonso, and that is the top 10. And plenty of Ferrari fans here wanting to see, can Lewis Hamilton make it 2 sprint wins out of 2 this season?
And we've just completed lap 3 of this non-race.
So we haven't had any racing so far. We've had plenty of incidents so far, and we're about to get going for the sprint. Lewis Hamilton will slot in to where his teammate Charles Leclerc should have been, which means everyone now moves up a grid spot because they don't leave the space open and empty. Right at the back is Yuki Tsunoda.
He's gone to the grid.
So has gone to the grid. And Red Bull have obviously checked that out and made sure that that's okay. So we've got 19 drivers on the grid for this Miami sprint. 8 points for a win, points all the way down to 8th place. No pit stops unless it gets too dry for those intermediate tyres. And Kimi Antonelli on pole. It's lights out, away we go, and I think Oscar Piastri had a better reaction time, and Piastri is coming at Kimi Antonelli and has the inside line into the first corner, and Antonelli has to back out of it, and he's going to lose places now, as through goes Piastri, through goes Norris, and through goes Max Verstappen. Pole down to 4th now, and George Russell all over the rear wing of his teammate's Mercedes.
Yeah, the trouble for Antonelli, he's out of position now, he's falling back through the pack. It's really hard to then gather the speed up. He should have yielded that first corner instead of trying to fight it around the outside. You live and you learn, and he's still on the racetrack.
It was just a slightly better reaction time from Oscar Piastri.
It put me off.
And once again, second race running, Oscar Piastri involved in the first corner incident with one car leaving the track. But unlike in Jeddah, the race leader, or the man on pole, didn't try and carry on. Right, here goes Antonelli into the next left-hander with George Russell right behind him, and lots of pressure being put on the young Italian in really, really tricky conditions still. Lewis Hamilton ahead of Alex Albon, Fernando Alonso up into 8th, Liam Lawson up into 9th from 14th. Isaac Hadjar has dropped down a couple of places. Lance Stroll has made an excellent start from 16th. Esteban Ocon holds on to 12th.
And they're all on the inside of the track, way off the racing line, to try to find some traction out of the tight left-hander onto the back straight.
Piastri leads from Norris and Verstappen as into the heavy braking zone at turn 17 we go. Through the spray come the cars here. Just for one moment thought that Esteban Ocon was trying to make a move on Lance Stroll. He couldn't do that. Sainz, though, gets past Pierre Gasly as we look down to see that Yuki Tsunoda has made up a couple of places already. And Piastri's lead 1.7 seconds at the end of our first racing lap.
And they won't be DRS, of course, in these conditions. Maybe later in the race they might enable it, but nonetheless Piastri's got himself a handsome advantage out there.
He certainly has. Lando Norris under a little bit more pressure from Max Verstappen. Antonelli has just moved a bit further ahead of George Russell now, and maybe his tyres getting a little bit warmer, and that's certainly helping him as through the cars stream now into this brilliant complex of high speed changes of direction, left to right, out in front, all looking very nice for Oscar Piastri. He is streaking away from Lando Norris.
they'll be tiptoeing around those. Zach Brown said to us on the pit wall, you know, what's more important is having a car for qualifying this afternoon for the main race tomorrow. Do not take any risks out there. But there are some points available. Liam Lawson would dearly love to get himself into the top 8, but Fernando Alonso knows his way around in these conditions.
Carlos Sainz has already got past Pierre Gasly. He's trying to make a move on the Haas of Esteban Ocon. Just has to sit behind him through the chicane currently, and then try down the back straight.
Trying very quickly. Copy.
Yeah, things could change around quite heavily here. If someone wants to take an early gamble onto the slicks, it might really pay dividends, but probably not just at this moment, Martin.
No, not for some time yet. But there are no mandatory pit stops in the sprint, but of course you can make a pit stop. As Carlos Sainz then up the inside, nicely done.
Yeah, Carlos Sainz nicely done. Jack Doohan almost, Pierre Gasly almost taking Esteban Ocon too. Ocon struggling out there a touch, but he's back ahead.
Ocon got better traction out of the corner. Sainz went in a bit deep and reclaimed the position.
That will carry on then for a few more corners as Carlos Sainz tries and tries again. Hulkenberg started 11th, down into 15th. Poor first couple of laps for him.
Car won't turn.
Lewis Hamilton struggling once again with the handling of his Ferrari. It's a different sprint today than it was in Shanghai for him last month. We're on board with the 7-time world champion now, and you can see how tricky it is, Martin.
Yeah, when he says it won't turn, obviously it does turn, but it won't turn as fast as he wants it to. Let's have a look and see who got to the apex first down in that first corner. And
that's Piastri's corner on the inside.
Touch and go. Really touch and go there as to where you need to stop the car really and decide where the apex is exactly, and whether Piastri was far enough. He's got to be alongside the mirror of the Mercedes of Antonelli, his front wheel. So as you get to the apex, it does look like it was Piastri's corner, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Lando Norris neat and tidy behind, just minding his own business.
It looked like a carbon copy of Jeddah when Piastri had the right to the corner.
Oh, my visor is just absolutely. I have no visibility. I don't know if it's a thing on something. It's terrible.
How's the track?
Trying, but not as quick as I thought.
Yeah, right now it's still faster than slick, but by a little bit. I've got a lot more pace here, guys.
Yeah, copy that, George.
It's got in close to slick. Copy. a lot of debris in the chicane. There's a lot you can't avoid it. It's all over the track. Turn 1340.
Guys, come on!
Fuck me, man. Well, man, I don't know what to say. Don't sweat it, Kimmy. Don't sweat it.
Kimmy, mini race, not relevant.
Great job in the pits, guys. Mega job.
Yeah, it was mega, yeah.
Hot man can override the green light, keep it red, which of course is what they should have done. It seemed to me he had a clear line of sight. He could see behind him the Red Bull guy, that the Mercedes guys were out. We could all see Mercedes were bringing one of their guys in, and it seemed like he had a clean line of sight. The only thing I can think is, was there a malfunction with this earlier in the season, Crofty, and wasn't it blamed, or weren't they looking at these pit stop traffic lights, and it was the one, there you go, is that Rich Wolverson, I think, closest to us, who's the man who's taken over from Jonathan Wheatley. It is Rich Wolverson, yeah. So he'll be wanting to know exactly what happened there.
Well, quite.
It's only cost it's only hurt them themselves.
Yeah, well, it's hurt them and it's hurt someone else, and it could have really hurt some of the crews.
So Verstappen has got a 10-second penalty for unsafe release.
And what about Piastri?
No, nothing for him. Usual turn one.
Good to know.
Well, it's the driving standards guidelines have changed slightly for this year, so that if you, as you mentioned, Martin, if you're alongside you've got to the mirror of the guy on your outside, then you have the right for that corner, as long as you are going to make that corner, and Oscar Piastri was.
It's a change for 2025, and presumably we're going to go across to the finish here, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's a change. No, we're on 17. So, yeah, it's a change for 2025 that before you had to give the driver on the outside racing room, which pretty much guaranteed you on the inside. You were too tight. You couldn't. So now it's, if you get up the inside, and you're up ahead of their mirror at the apex, it's up to the driver on the outside to yield. You're no longer obliged to give him racing room. In Jeddah, I think it was unquestionable, unquestioned that Piastri had that advantage. Here, I think it was a bit touch and go.
Rosé, one of 17 artists on the F1 the Movie soundtrack album, which has been released this week, gets ready to wave the checkered flag, waving it for Lando Norris. If Lando Norris, it's only a point he gains on Oscar Piastri. If he wanted anything from this sprint race, it was to get back and have something go his way, and something to make him smile and cheer him on his way for the next part of the weekend.
Yeah, and the bad news for Red Bull and Max is that with the pack all so tight like this, it'll cost him. He'll be out of the points with 10-second penalty with the pack all nose to tail.
Final sprint races, final two sprint races in 2024 were a 1-2 for McLaren. We're going to get a 1-2 for McLaren here. Lewis Hamilton will pick up his second best finish for Ferrari. His two best finishes for Ferrari coming in these sprint races. For Lando Norris, the disco glitter ball helmet has been debuted for this week, and this race spun around in two dramatic laps, with Carlos Sainz hitting the wall, Fernando Alonso hitting the wall, a safety car coming out after his teammate Oscar Piastri had pitted. Out came the safety car just in the nick of time for the speed on the track to slow down and Lando to rejoin in the lead.
Well, who says they don't like sprint races? I love a sprint weekend. There's always something going on. And that was a cracker, wasn't it? I mean, wow. How can he fit that much action into what turned out to be an 18-lapper?
The Hard Rock Stadium, it's a hard luck story for the likes of Piastri and the likes of Antonelli. It's a good news story for Lando Norris. Safety car peels away, and Lando Norris will lead the drivers over the line as they come into view to win the Miami Sprint in 20.
Cool. P1, well done. Yeah, lovely job. Well done, boys.
Well done, Oscar.
Yeah, thanks. Don't think I'll be buying any lottery tickets in this place.
Save the luck for tomorrow, mate.
Because he was without doubt the fastest man on the track.
Yeah,
before that.
Norris would have got out in second place, looking at the tracker here, ahead of that fight with Verstappen that Hamilton was in, but it would have been a lot closer. Lewis would have been having a good look at the back of the McLaren, but Piastri would have had it covered. But the safety car worked really well for him. It hurt him that they couldn't bring both McLarens in at the same time because they were nose to tail. You might almost thought it's worth losing the 4 or 5 seconds you have to wait, but then they would have cost Lando a lot of time there. But hey, it worked out for him. He rolled the dice and it worked.
He certainly did.
And don't forget, he caught his teammate. Norris caught Piastri quite comfortably there, didn't he? So it wasn't like it was... he didn't just reverse into that. He was right on his teammate's gearbox.
I'm not sure the stewards have got enough time in between sprint and qualifying to get everything decided, because Alex Albon has been now noted for a possible false start as well. Max Verstappen was noted. They investigated. Unlike Lando Norris, he looked to be further forward, but he wasn't moving. He'd actually come to a stop. But it's a safety car procedure infringement for Alex Albon, and it's just been corrected on our screen. He did look to be further forward, but maybe, as you say, there was something of the tyre on that white line.
Lando wasn't moving in Bahrain. He was just had his contact patch beyond the white line. I'm not sure if it was even more than one of them, but clearly Max still. But I make my point again. If that's all right to have your contact patch on the front edge of the start box,
they should all do it.
They've got to all do it.
Right, let's hear from the top three, shall we? Down on the grid, the fans waiting to hear from Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri and Lewis Hamilton. We'll go down there in a moment. And the debrief is already starting at Red Bull with Max Verstappen's manager, Raymond, and Christian Horner, and also Helmut Marko. Something not right and not functioning right with the Red Bull pit stops at the moment.
they were a bit unhappy with me, something I said about the pit stops in the previous races, and they have had some dramas. Christian was telling me that people weren't able for various...
Well, Lewis, I knew you were an incredible driver, but you're also an amazing weatherman. I remember some years in Silverstone, you changed the tires at the right time, and today you do it again. So, and then the move on Max, fantastic. How was it?
How you doing, Miami? The crowd's been so great today. Oh man, I'm so happy with that. You know, it's been a tough year so far, but to have, you know, I never thought it was going to rain in Miami. It was the first time that we've all been on track in the wet here, and what a race it provided us. So big thank you, everybody.
Yeah, that must be making you feel good for qualifying in a couple of hours. Now you got the car underneath and understand how to go fast.
Oh well, I really did struggle on the inters. I think everyone was struggling on them, and I made that call at the end. I was like, I'm coming in because I wasn't going nowhere. So take the risk, take the gamble, and it paid off. Wish we had another couple laps to give these guys a bit of a fight, but you know, big congrats to McLaren as always.
Congrats, good job.
Thank you.
Hello, Oscar. I thought you had your job done at the start. You did a fantastic start, got it under control, track dry, you come in first of the McLaren and pit, and I thought, you know, you were going to score some good points to get the win today, but they're still very good points, but then I guess a bit unlucky with the timing with the safety car.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I did pretty much everything right there, so yeah, obviously a bit disappointed to come away with second, but that's how it goes sometimes. Unfortunately, racing's a pretty cool business, so yeah, hopefully that means I got a bit of luck for this afternoon and tomorrow, but no, another great start, and yeah, I had to get my elbows out in that one, so happy with what I did.
Good, yeah, I guess, and you feel good for this afternoon. Car feels good, car is fast, so it should be another shot at tomorrow to get another win.
Yeah, definitely. I think we had a little bit of pace on the table in sprint qualifying yesterday, and hopefully we can use that for quality this afternoon. It'd be nice if the weather could make up its mind, but no, been enjoying it, and yeah, I think we've got a quick car underneath us, so we'll try and make it even quicker and have a bit of an easier race tomorrow.
Well, good luck, and let's watch later today.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Oh, you have to tell me how you do with safety car here. You seem to have the, you know, it's not Vegas, but you have the good mood in Miami. It's a good city for you. Yes. Congrats, a good race. You're having fantastic pace towards the end of the inters, and then I guess you thought you were not going to be the one at the best strategy, but it turned out to be the one.
Yeah, I mean, my luck in Miami seems pretty good at the minute, so I'm happy. But you know, the pace was still very good. It's always just difficult, these races. You never know when to box. You boxed early. You know, it paid off for Lewis, and he had a good strategy. Or do you stay out later and maybe get the safety car, you know? So it's worked 2 years in a row. I probably would prefer if this happened tomorrow rather than today, but I'll take it. I'm happy. Good job by the team. So yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah, fantastic job by you, by the team. I guess you feel super confident going into qualifying, having another shot at getting pole, and hopefully tomorrow another win in Miami.
It's the plan. Yeah, that's the plan. But it's tricky, you know, there's a lot of quick guys out there, and I felt good yesterday, to be honest, a couple little mistakes, but I'm ready to go again, so excited.
Well, good luck, and we'll be watching.
Cheers, man. Thank you.